When you think about the internet, what pops into your head? Probably something like the cloud, right? Something that feels wireless and tangible, just kind of there. But what if I told you the reality is far more physical, a lot more fragile, and is being fought over in a hidden war most of us don't even know exists? Okay, let's dive into this invisible world. Here's a number to get us started: 95%. That is a staggering amount of Israel's data and communications. We're talking everything from huge financial transactions and military commands, all the way down to your video calls with family, that travels through just a handful of fiber optic cables. Cables that are just sitting on the bottom of the sea. And that really gets to the heart of the issue. What happens when someone cuts that line? Suddenly, the internet goes from a simple convenience to a critical national security problem. Because if you control the cables, well, you control the flow of information itself. So before we get into the fight for control, let's just get a picture of what this underwater network actually looks like. You see, that cloud we all talk about isn't in the sky. It's actually a massive, very physical network of undersea cables. These things are the true arteries of the global economy and modern security, silently carrying pretty much all of the world's data across these dark, deep ocean floors. And for some countries, those arteries are dangerously exposed. And this brings us to Israel's really unique and frankly precarious situation. See, unlike nations in Europe that are crisscrossed with land-based fiber optic lines, Israel's geopolitical reality means it just doesn't have that kind of land-based connection to the West. For all intents and purposes, it's an island. So what does that actually mean to be a communications island? It means you are almost completely dependent on those sea-based connections. It means any disruption to those few undersea cables doesn't just slow down your Netflix. It threatens to cut the entire country off from the digital world. And this whole vulnerability really boils down to three huge problems. First, there's a lack of what's called systemic redundancy. Just think of it like this: you don't have enough backup roads if the main highway gets shut down. Second, there's no geographic diversity. All the cables kind of follow the same path through the Mediterranean, which makes them one big, juicy target. And third, fixing them is incredibly slow and difficult. You can't just send a technician in a van to fix a cable that's miles under the sea. And you can bet that this kind of vulnerability has not gone unnoticed. It has turned the quiet, dark seabed into a totally new kind of battlefield, a place for a new kind of invisible infrastructural warfare. Welcome to the gray zone. So what is this gray zone warfare? Well, it is all about plausible deniability. We're talking about hostile acts carried out by state actors or their proxies that are designed to do real strategic damage, but while staying just below the line of what you'd call an open war. The key here is ambiguity, making it almost impossible to prove with 100% certainty who did it. And that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? How do you prove who's responsible? Was that cable cut by a stray ship's anchor, which, believe it or not, happens all the time? Or was it a deliberate act of sabotage by a military submarine or some kind of unmanned vehicle? In the deep sea, the evidence, well, it often just sinks with the secret. So how in the world do analysts tell the difference between an accident and an attack? Well, they have to look for a pattern. They ask questions like, is the damage in a place that's unusually deep, somewhere that would require specialized equipment to reach? Did multiple cables get cut around the same time? And, maybe most importantly, does it happen to line up with rising political or military tensions? And listen, this isn't just some theory. We've seen a really clear pattern of incidents just in the past few years. In 2021, a cable near Svalbard, Norway, was cut in an area with a lot of Russian naval activity. In 2022, the Shetland Islands were totally cut off from the internet. Then in 2023, 5 major cables serving Vietnam went down almost at the same time. And in 2024, cables in the Baltic Sea were damaged right in the middle of high tensions with Russia. The trend is obvious, and it's escalating. This quote just perfectly captures the new reality we're in. And the threat isn't just about cutting cables, it's also about listening in. You know, during the Cold War, the US famously tapped into a Soviet cable in a mission called Operation Ivy Bells. Well, today's technology makes that look like child's play, turning any nation's data lifeline into a potential goldmine for intelligence agencies. Now, I know what you're thinking. The obvious question is, why not just switch to satellites? It's a really common suggestion, but it completely misses the sheer, mind-boggling scale of the data we're talking about. A quick comparison makes it crystal clear. The difference is absolutely staggering. Undersea cables have immense bandwidth and give us near instantaneous communication. Think of bandwidth like lanes on a highway. The cables are like a 50-lane superhighway. Satellites? They're more like a two-lane country road. They just can't carry the traffic of an entire nation's modern economy. They also have higher latency, which is that annoying delay you get on a video call. They are a vital backup, for sure, but they can't replace the whole system. And, as we're about to see, they've got their own serious problems. Yeah, these vulnerabilities are very, very real. In 2021, Russia tested an anti-satellite missile, basically proving to the world that it could blow assets right out of orbit. In 2022, a huge cyber attack on a satellite network knocked out tens of thousands of modems right at the beginning of the Ukraine invasion. And in 2024, reports came out that Iran had successfully used electronic warfare to jam satellite services, showing that even the most advanced systems can be disrupted.
So, the bottom line is clear. Satellites are absolutely critical for things like ensuring military command and control in a crisis, but they cannot run an entire country's economy and civil life. For that, you need the massive capacity that only undersea cables can provide. And that means the focus has to be on making the cable network itself stronger and more resilient.
So how do you defend an invisible network at the bottom of the ocean? Well, the solution isn't just about better technology. It demands a fundamental shift in geopolitics. It's about forging new connections, new digital bridges, and moving beyond this whole communications island problem. A multi-layered strategy is starting to take shape. First, you have to create geopolitical redundancy. That means building new land routes, say east through Jordan and Saudi Arabia. At the very same time, you have to actively defend the cables you already have and beef up security at the landing stations on the coast. And finally, you need advanced undersea monitoring to spot threats before they can even make a move. And this isn't just talk. There's a powerful real-world example called Google's Blue Raman project. It's designed to do exactly what we're talking about: connect Europe to Israel by sea, and then continue over land all the way to India. If it works, it would transform Israel from a communications island into a digital crossroads. But, and it's a big but, progress has been slowed down by the very regional instability it's designed to bypass, which just shows how urgent this all is. There's a line from the source material for this explainer that really just brings it all home. It says that the national security of Israel is also shaped in the depths of the sea. National security is no longer just about what's happening on the land or in the air. In our digital age, the stability and sovereignty of a nation are directly tied to the security of these silent, vital infrastructures hidden deep underwater. Which leaves us with a pretty critical question for the future. As our world gets more and more connected, and also more and more contested, the fight for control over these invisible lifelines is really only just beginning. The seabed is no longer just some quiet, dark, empty place. It's becoming a strategic frontier. You might even call it the next great battlefield.